I remember biting my nails. I think I was around 4 years old and never sure why, just did it. I remember growing up and trying to stop. I had a stepdad who wanted to help me stop, and can't say his method was the greatest. It was one of those where if you had your fingers in your mouth and he saw you, he'd kind of pop your hand. Um, and I guess that's part of CBT, maybe, I don't know. Um, Cognitive behavioral therapy, uh, where you have you ever heard of that CBT? It's kind of like um, you're doing something and recognize that you're doing it so that you can stop doing it, and that's great. That's great. Good stuff out there. It doesn't work in the long run very well. Costs a lot of money. I think the rate is like 55% will be cured, which is that's wonderful if you got the time and money. Uh, but I never liked that, and it never worked. I just have to hide what I was doing, so that worked. So I could just keep biting my cuticles or my fingernails, and still nothing seemed to work. As I grew up, I would try different things. One time, I figured there's an interesting way I could try to stop biting my fingernails and cuticles. I would take this stuff, almost like nail polish, and I would paint it on my fingernails and let it dry. Sometimes it was clear, sometimes it was a little, maybe a little yellowy color. But anyway, it tasted awful. It's not something you could just really handle like eating one like candy. The problem was if I put it in my mouth, I would taste it and I would want to stop, but I can't tell you that it really stopped me. I just I just had to do it quicker so I could spit it out or whatever. So, eh. So if it works for you, then great. You know, that's something you can try. But it didn't work for me. And the sad part is I tried it more than once. So at one point I tried it in my life and it was like, okay, I'll try it. And then it didn't do any good and didn't matter. And then later, for some reason, I thought it'd make a difference. There's this other brand. So I tried it and it didn't work either. Just a bit quicker, be done quicker. It's great if you know what you're doing. And what I mean by know what you're doing is most of the time when I bit my fingers, I didn't know I was doing it. It it's not it's never been like I want to bite my fingers. Nope, never worked like that. For me, it'd be more like I'm watching TV and it's a really neat show and I just catch myself biting my cuticles and my fingers and I just didn't even really know I was doing it. Some people believe that biting your fingernails and cuticles is a sign of anxiety. And maybe it is for some people. But personally, I've never experienced that. I've never bitten my fingernails from anxiety or having a difficult time with something. It was always during other times that were strange that didn't make any sense. So I could be studying something online and just trying to really get into whatever it is I was trying to learn, and I would find myself biting my cuticles and fingernails. No real reason behind it. A lot of the methods and things that are out there that help you to learn to stop biting your fingers are wonderful if you know you're biting your fingers. What about those times? There's a lot of times that you don't even know you're doing it. You'd find out later, like after you're bleeding or ouch, you hurt your finger and it. Or what about this one? You bite your cuticle and then 2 days later it's infected and it hurts really bad. And some people might try to it gets gross. And, you know, I won't explain that part. But, you know, maybe you never had to deal with that. Just, I did a couple of times. As I got older, I think I got more careful, but I still couldn't stop. I hated that. Professionally, I do a lot of software development and things of that nature. And I always thought that, you know, the fingernail biting was not a big deal. Usually when I was in front of people talking or trying to teach something, things of that nature, I seemed to be very good about not having my fingers in my mouth. So that's good. So I don't think I was embarrassing myself like that. But I will say there was a time after I found a cure for this. I sat down with a manager and I was talking to him and I said, "Hey, did you ever notice that I bit my fingernails in the past?" And I'd been working for the person for a couple of years at that point. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, you mean that horrible, nasty, ugly habit of sticking your fingers in your mouth and biting on them? Yeah, I noticed you did that." I was like, I'm glad we were close enough that he could be honest with me, but I didn't think people thought like that. Can you imagine? I'd been biting my fingers for more than 40 something years, and that's the first time I ever thought or ever heard someone express what they felt about it. Ugh. Anyway, the cool part was he also noticed that for the past week, I didn't do it anymore. How'd that happen? How did that happen? That is the point. HowToStopBitingNails.com. Just saying. Just saying. Is it worth it? Is it worth a try? I tried all kinds of things. Do you see this rubber band? What if I could tell you that there's a place that you could get sold a rubber band and put it on your wrist, and whenever you find that you're biting your fingernails, you just, ow! What about that? Won't that help you stop? Maybe. If you know you're doing it. If you don't know you're doing it, this is just painful and hurting yourself. Why that? No good. I won't do that. But if you want to try it, it might work for you. It worked for me. What if, to stop biting your fingernails, you could go see a therapist or a psychiatrist or someone else that you could talk to that could help cure you of this bad habit of biting your fingernails or cuticles? Over the years, I've spoken to a few different ones, and you know what? I was told the same thing by a lot of them. It's a habit that you can't break. That sucks. I had a habit I couldn't break. However, eventually I found a method using a therapy that's fairly new called EMDR. And you can look that up sometime. I'm not going to try to explain it. But it worked. I was able to get cured of biting my fingers in less than 2 hours. And I have not done it again since. No relapse. No issue. And when I find my hand up by my face, if that happens, it doesn't happen much anymore. But initially I'd find it and I'd just look at it like, I'm not doing that. Isn't that cool? I don't have to think about not doing it. I just no longer will do it. That's awesome. And that's worth every penny.